To provide that insight there, we will of course bring you all the developments from the flash flooding, landslides in South Korea and also that typhoon hitting Hong Kong. But we move on now, and Sudan's Prime Minister Kamil Idris has pledged to rebuild Khartoum, which has been devastated by more than 2 years of war. This marks his first visit to the capital since assuming office in May. During his tour of the destroyed infrastructure, Idris outlined plans for large-scale repair projects to accommodate the return of at least some of the over 3.5 million people displaced by violence. Idris emphasised that Khartoum would once again stand as a proud national capital. However, the task of reconstruction is immense, with the government estimating the cost of rebuilding Khartoum alone at $350 billion. The war between Sudan's army and the Rapid Support Forces continues, and while the army has regained control of Khartoum, fighting persists across the country. The humanitarian crisis continues to worsen as well, with millions in urgent need of aid and basic services. Well, joining us to discuss this latest development in Sudan, that of course is still gripped by a civil war, Dr. Charles Sinkala, an international relations expert who is joining us from Johannesburg. Dr. Sinkala, thank you for joining us live and taking the time to speak with us. This move by Idris in Khartoum to talk about bringing it back to where it was, is this symbolic, or is it a real shift and a real momentum for the Sudanese government, which of course is still facing fighting on a war front?
Thank you very much. I think it is significant as it is the step forward to the conflict solution and the de-escalation of military support that has, affected the Sudanese government and the people for quite some time.
Yes, and Dr. Sinkala, of course, the position is a difficult one. We've mentioned there so many people displaced, millions potentially displaced, humanitarian crises on the ground as well. Not just looking at the Sudanese government, what do you think is needed from the wider African region, but also international players during a time of such uncertainty for so many?
Sympathy, empathy and solidarity for the peoples of Sudan. Any support in terms of humanitarian support would be needed, and as well the condemnation of those who are escalating military support to those government. I think bilateral, multilateral diplomatic mediation is also needed so that they can find a win-win position in terms of the conflict.
Yes, and Dr. Sinkala, let's take it back now. Of course, years of civil war that have gripped Sudan. Could you provide some context on the modern state of play? What's happening right now on the ground? Is the Sudanese government making progress? And what is this conflict all about in Sudan?
Well, if I go back 30 years ago, even 40 years ago, as you may be aware, Sudan was one country. The separation of South and North Sudan has been exacerbated by the conflicts, on the fight for the minerals and the position of the country, and as well as the international interference within that region that sides the militias. Over the years, yes, it was agreed as the resolution was tabled out that the country should be split into countries. And that's why now we have the northern part of Sudan, and we've got a country as well as called South Sudan. But the de-escalation of military support and the fight for, the position of wealth and minerals within that region continues, with the little hope that these conflicts will come to an end anytime soon, as each and every time a new wound pops up.
Yes, and Dr. Sinkala, to bring an end to our discussion, what comes next? Idris, of course, talking about rebuilding and growing and moving forward. How likely is that, and how close is an end to this conflict?
Well, the challenge in the world is the lip service. Many nations, many people, many organizations has only ended on lip service. I call it lip service because there's no implementation that is followed up apart from the pronouncements that they shout about the mediation within the countries. I think we need to reach to an extent that physical intervention within the conflict-torn zone of Sudan, to de-escalate, to support in terms of military. I do not support, the support of military within the region, which is under conflict, as that just exacerbates the conflicts moving forward. We have to give either sanctions to the individuals that are supporting, including countries. The United Nations, according to the United Nations Security Council and the Charter, has always promoted the international relations between the nations. But part of the nations who are members of the 192 countries of the United Nations and the United Nations Security Council are part of the conflict that are fueling and supporting either side of the conflict or the war.
Yes, Dr. Charles Sinkala, thank you ever so much for taking the time and providing that context. We will continue to monitor